Imagine for a moment a billionaire rapper, a former US president, and a high-stakes trial that's sending seismic waves through the global music and entertainment industry. You might think this is a plot ripped from a Netflix crime thriller. But this is real life, and whether you listen to hip-hop or not, what's happening right now is about to reshape how money, power, and influence operate, not just in the celebrity world, but in business and society at large. The trial of Sean "Diddy" Combs, one of the most influential figures in modern music, has become far more than a collection of shocking headlines. It's a case where entertainment, politics, law, and the very fabric of American culture have collided. When Donald Trump, yes, that Donald Trump, suggested he might consider a pardon for Diddy, the drama reached a fever pitch. What is the true cost when the world's most powerful people play by rules no one else can even see? And what does all this reveal about the future of power in the age of tech-driven fame and fortune? In this video, we're not just going to relive the most jaw-dropping moments of the Diddy trial. We'll break down how this case became a lightning rod for debates about justice, celebrity, and the business of influence. We'll uncover the real stakes behind the headlines and ask, who's really on trial here? The man, the music, or the system that made him untouchable? Let's rewind and set the stage for one of the most consequential legal battles of our era. Sean "Diddy" Combs, born and raised in Harlem, built an empire on hustle, vision, and an uncanny ability to spot what's next. From Bad Boy Records to fashion brands and premium vodka, he shaped global pop culture and made himself into one of the first true business moguls of hip-hop. The money, the access, the connections. Diddy became a symbol of how sheer ambition could turn an artist into an enterprise. By the late 2010s, his net worth was estimated at nearly $1 billion. The man knew everyone, influenced everything, and, up until now, seemed immune to the scandals that took down lesser stars. But beneath the glitzy surface, rumors and whispers had been circulating for years. Stories about wild parties, fierce rivalries, and a strict code of loyalty within his inner circle. There were occasional lawsuits, tabloid scandals, but they faded behind the glow of platinum records and celebrity endorsements. The music industry itself, powered by American money and global audiences, was no stranger to stories of excess, exploitation, and blurred boundaries. Still, Diddy's legend, and his legal team, always seemed to stay one step ahead. That all changed in early 2025. The dam burst. Multiple civil and criminal lawsuits landed at once, each more shocking than the last. The charges: racketeering, sex trafficking, emotional and physical abuse. And suddenly, the media that once celebrated Diddy's every move was now pulling apart every detail of his private life. The government's decision to pursue Diddy under the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations (RICO) Act was a game-changer. This is the same legal weapon used against mafia bosses and drug cartels, designed to bring down entire criminal enterprises, not just individuals. It sent a powerful message. This was about more than one man. It was about exposing an alleged web of complicity that stretched from the boardrooms of his companies to the homes and hotel suites where the worst crimes were said to occur. Prosecutors brought forward a parade of witnesses, each offering a glimpse into what they claimed was the real Diddy, not just a visionary entrepreneur, but a man who used power, money, and fear to get what he wanted. And the stories were harrowing. One of the central figures was Mia, a former assistant who spoke to the court anonymously. She described starting work for Diddy at just 20 years old, stepping into a world she called toxic and chaotic. She claimed Diddy was violently unpredictable. One memory, forever etched in her mind: Diddy hurling a plate of spaghetti at her, missing her head by inches. But it didn't end there. Mia described a workplace where sexual boundaries were blurred or outright ignored, where acts of aggression were routine, and where silence, or complicity, was often rewarded over basic decency. Then came the testimony of Cassandra Ventura, known to music fans as Cassie, Diddy's ex-girlfriend and the prosecution's star witness. Her account was raw and deeply personal. She told the court that Diddy controlled her life, forced her into freak-offs, group sexual encounters involving escorts or strippers, and compelled her to use drugs to cope with the humiliation and psychological pain. She wiped away tears as she admitted she only participated to please him, describing the acts as dehumanizing and shattering to her sense of self-worth. "I felt worthless," Cassie said in court. "It made me feel pretty terrible." The stories aligned. A world where power meant control, and no one, no matter how close, was safe from the fallout. And yet for years these stories were contained by ironclad non-disclosure agreements, legal threats, and allegedly, outright intimidation. But Diddy's defense was relentless. His lawyers painted accusers as opportunists with axes to grind, pointing to old social media posts where Mia and others appeared grateful and enthusiastic about their work for him. The defense highlighted inconsistencies, argued that some encounters were consensual, and implied that fame, both his and the accusers, magnified every misstep into something more sinister than it truly was. And then another bombshell. Kid Cudi, the acclaimed rapper, testified about the firebombing of his own car in 2012, allegedly tied to Diddy's web of intimidation. The courtroom was transfixed. If true, this incident wasn't just about sexual exploitation or emotional cruelty. It raised the chilling specter of organized criminal retribution. Prosecutors leaned in hard, arguing that Diddy's empire functioned much like a criminal syndicate, with employees and allies carrying out his bidding, while silence was enforced by fear of what might happen if anyone spoke out. Legal experts weighed in. Brian Kalt, a law professor, confirmed that if Donald Trump chose to pardon Diddy, he could, no matter how disturbing the charges. Mark Chutkow, a former federal prosecutor, noted, "Elements of extortion, coercion, and fear are painfully present. This starts looking remarkably like what we see with gangs and criminal organizations." But legal limelight is a fickle beast. Diddy isn't just fighting for his freedom. He's battling for his reputation, his businesses, and his empire's survival. The stakes are massive. And this is where the story goes from headline drama to a systemic question. How did Diddy, a self-made billionaire, become allegedly untouchable for so long? And what does it say about the culture of celebrity, the machinery of music and influence, that such allegations could go ignored or even protected until now? The answers aren't simple. The music industry is built on talent, yes, but also on power structures that reward loyalty, silence, and the pursuit of profit at nearly any cost. When artists become brands and brands become empires, the lines between public persona and private behavior can blur until they disappear entirely. Non-disclosure agreements, loyalty contracts, and a culture where what happens backstage stays backstage all contribute to an ecosystem where abuse isn't just possible, it can be institutionalized. Rachel Maiman, a former federal prosecutor, remarked, "The prosecution is making the case that Diddy's business employees were not just witnesses, but active participants in criminal activities. That's an accusation that changes the stakes for the entire industry." All the while, the defense urges the jury and the public not to buy into a narrative manufactured for maximum media impact. Their argument? Diddy is being targeted because of his fame, his success, and the public's appetite for scandal. They warn against what they call trial by tabloid. But can a man with Diddy's resources really be the victim here? And what about the potential for a presidential pardon dangled by Trump in the heat of election season? Would the system that made Diddy a billionaire now protect him from the consequences of his alleged actions, simply because of his fame and the political connections he's cultivated? Behind the courtroom drama, the stakes stretch far beyond one man or one verdict. At risk, the music industry's credibility, the trust of fans, the safety of employees, and the idea that justice can work in the face of overwhelming money and power. As the trial reaches its critical phase, observers, fans, and critics alike are left asking, will the legal system finally hold a titan of the industry accountable? Or will celebrity, wealth, and political muscle once again rewrite the rules? How far does the influence of a billionaire music mogul, backed by possible presidential intervention, really go? The answer to that question may reveal the true state of power in our world. And it all hinges on what happens next, as the trial hurtles toward its dramatic conclusion. As the dust settles in the Manhattan courtroom, the world is left holding its breath. The Diddy trial has already exposed more than just the alleged crimes of one man. It has ripped the curtain back from the entertainment industry itself, revealing toxic abuses of power, chilling silence, and the dangerous blend of celebrity, money, and legal maneuvering. But what comes next? The future is anything but certain. Already there are whispers of seismic shifts in the industry. Lawsuits continue to mount against Diddy, with attorney Tony Busby heading a wave of accusers. Prosecutors wield the powerful RICO Act, seeking not just to punish specific acts, but to prove a criminal enterprise, an organization where intimidation, fear, and violence are tools of control. If the jury sides with the prosecution, the repercussions for Diddy's empire and for the music business as a whole will be earth-shattering. Some experts warn that even overwhelming evidence does not guarantee a RICO conviction. As veteran trial lawyer Mark Zauderer explains, Violence alone isn't enough for racketeering. You have to prove an actual criminal enterprise, conspiracy, an ongoing organization. That is a tall order, even with shocking testimony. Yet Mark Chutkow, a former federal prosecutor, counters that the combination of repeated intimidation, manipulation, and business employees being used to enforce these acts paints a picture of criminal enterprise not unlike what we see in organized crime. Then there is the specter of presidential intervention. President Trump's remarks have injected a wild card into an already unpredictable scenario. The very notion of a possible pardon for Diddy, should he be convicted, has ignited furious debate. Brian Kalt, a law professor, points out, a president's pardon powers know almost no limits. If Trump decides Diddy was treated unfairly, he could wipe the conviction away, regardless of the evidence or the jury's will. Imagine the fallout if it happens. For survivors who risked everything to testify, a pardon would be a gut punch, undermining faith in justice and signaling to the powerful that accountability is negotiable. For Diddy, a successful pardon could mean freedom, but not redemption. His legacy would be forever tainted, his business shattered, his name synonymous with scandal. But even without intervention from the White House, the verdict, no matter which way it falls, will send shockwaves. A conviction would likely destroy Diddy's brand and force the music industry to finally confront its culture of secrecy and complicity. We could see sweeping reforms, stricter contracts, independent oversight within labels, and the rise of new voices demanding transparency, safety, and respect for artists. A hung jury or an acquittal would trigger a different storm. The public, already fatigued and outraged by celebrity scandals, might lose what little faith remains in the justice system. The music industry would be put on notice, but the message would be ambiguous. Power can still buy protection, and the wheels of justice grind to a halt when the defendant owns the machine. There's another dimension, the precedent the Diddy case could set. If prosecutors succeed in proving that an entire business can function as a vehicle for organized abuse, similar cases could follow. Powerful figures in film, sports, even tech might find themselves under the same harsh spotlight, unable to hide behind NDAs, legal teams, or public relations shields. What does all this mean for the world beyond the courtroom? For the millions who look up to celebrities as artists, moguls, cultural icons, this trial is a sobering lesson. The myth of untouchable stardom is being shattered in real time. Let's break down some key takeaways for everyone watching. First, the Diddy case is a brutal reminder that fame and fortune don't make someone above the law, or at least they shouldn't. Second, it highlights the critical role of testimony and collective action. Mia, Cassie Ventura, Capricorn Clark, and others risked their careers, reputations, and safety to speak up. They remind us that change begins with courage. Their bravery exposes how vital it is to listen to survivors, break the culture of silence, and demand accountability from the powerful. Third, this case is a wake-up call for the music and entertainment industries. For too long, whispers of abuse, intimidation, and exploitation have been waved away in the name of art, money, or the brand. No longer. If industry leaders don't innovate real protections, independent complaint mechanisms, transparent investigations, and robust support for victims, they risk their own implosion. There's also a lesson here about the justice system itself. As former prosecutor Rachel Maiman puts it, justice for the rich and famous shouldn't look different than justice for the rest of us. This case will show whether that promise can be kept or if we're just fooling ourselves. The world is watching, closely, how the courts handle not just Diddy, but the shadowy structures that enabled him for so long. On a personal level, there's one more takeaway. Don't be fooled by appearances. The Diddy trial exposes how image can be weaponized. It's a clear call for all of us to look beyond the surface, question the stories we're told, and refuse to let fame excuse bad or criminal behavior. In a world obsessed with celebrity, critical thinking and moral clarity have never been more important. You might be wondering, can this ever really change? Can the system actually hold the rich and powerful accountable? The answer is yes, but only if we refuse to look away. The outrage, attention, and pressure you bring as a viewer, a listener, a fan, or a consumer matters. Public scrutiny can force legal reform, accelerate industry change, and embolden more victims to come forward. Here's a secret fact. Behind the scenes, industry insiders are already negotiating new clauses in recording contracts to prevent abuse, spurred directly by the fallout from this case. Some major record labels are quietly working with outside investigators to review past complaints, actions that would have been unthinkable even a year ago. As the verdict looms, remember, this is about more than one man. It's about whether an entire system can be made to serve justice, not just profit. So, will Diddy escape the consequences, protected by fame, wealth, and old connections? Or will the justice system at last prove its strength and independence? The final answer depends not only on the jury or the judge or the president, but on all of us, on whether we keep watching, asking questions, and holding power to account. Stay tuned, because whatever happens next, it will shape the future of celebrity, justice, and the music we love. If this story made you think, hit that like button. Subscribe for the latest updates on this trial and more investigations into the forces shaping our culture. And tell us in the comments, do you think